Hey guys, welcome to High Top Sports Oregon. We're going to be talking about the massive news that just happened. Cornerback Jamar Muhammad from Washington has committed to Oregon, but I'm not going to be telling you about this big time commit. We're going to head over to our Oregon insider in Derek Zelmer to talk all thing Oregon's Ducks right now and what this means for the transfer portal and what this means for the Ducks heading into next year. Derek?
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is a commitment I know myself and a lot of Oregon fans have been absolutely fired up for. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of smoke to Jabbar heading to Texas, especially he has a couple family members that play, for the Longhorns. The Oregon insiders, they've been saying all week how trust it, he's going to be a Duck at the end of the week, and here we are. So what we got in Jabbar Muhammad, we got the number 4 overall cornerback in the portal available. Currently the number 1 available player has just committed to the Ducks today. He's a 5'10" corner, about a buck 83. Um, what we're getting with Jabbar, we know he's great in coverage. Ducks fans, we've seen it twice this year. Unfortunately, he had his way with our receiving core, and it didn't go our way. So we're more than glad to have him here. What Jabbar is, though, he's excellent in coverage. The man moves extremely well laterally, very quick on his feet, well known to adjust on the fly very well, gets his head turned around, which can lead to a couple turnovers, which is huge for our secondary here. Um, I know there's a little bit of concern with Jabbar, not necessarily amongst the Oregon fans or Washington fans last year, but amongst NFL draft insiders. They say, Jabbar, he's a little bit undersized. He's sitting at, that 5'10" frame, which is not huge. So, if you're expecting a heavy hitter, a big thumper coming out of the secondary, that's probably not what we're going to get with Jabbar. That's not necessarily a bad thing. We do know what he brings to the table. We know that his coverage grade is phenomenal. So we're definitely looking forward to having that in the secondary. And, it absolutely plays into a need of the Ducks. So for many years, we've seen that Oregon has struggled in their secondary play. Under Tosh Lupoi, it's definitely cleaned up the last 2 years. But I know Oregon fans are just pumped to have the secondary heading into the 24 season. Now going to be led by Jabbar here. What he is he's going to plug and play instantly in that CB1 position. So last year, we saw Kyrie Jackson and Jaleel Florence kind of man that secondary, CB1 and 2. Kyrie obviously heading over to the NFL. So we were looking for somebody who could plug instantly and take over that CB1 rep. And I think we're getting that with Jabbar here. Um, what that means for the rest of the secondary, as you guys are aware, we also picked up Brandon Johnson from Duke, who he's listed as a cornerback. I think he's going to play a lot of nickel for us this year. And then we also grabbed all conference AAC Cam Alexander from UTSA, which is another massive pickup. Now that man, he is a thumper. So it's a nice little compliment to our guy Jabbar here. So the secondary, what we do have is we finally have a loaded secondary with tremendous amounts of depth, right? So, another couple names that Oregon fans are familiar with, especially with the recruiting cycles the last couple of years, Dalen Austin, Roderick Pleasant. These are a couple young guys, redshirted last year, who expected to see the field a little bit. They create an excellent amount of depth for the Ducks coming into this year. These are guys who we saw in flashes this year, and they did very well. We hear lots of great things coming out of practice with these guys, so the amount of depth there is absolutely phenomenal. Um, what we do have here in, um, Jabbar is, we saw him twice. Once playing Washington in October. Again, we saw him again in the Pac-12 championship game. Unfortunately, he is one of the very few cornerbacks that we were seeing that were actually able to kind of keep Troy Franklin at bay, especially in that Pac-12 championship game. As you guys know, we were unable to generate any sort of offense for the first half, more or less, and Troy Franklin was pretty, he didn't have a great game to say the least. He was a 4 receptions for 34 yards. And we Duck fans knew heading into that game he was going to have to be a big game. Jabbar shadowed him for much of the game and really shut him down there. So it's something that we're excited to see. Something that we didn't really, it's new territory for us in the fact that we're not used to seeing people come over from our biggest rival to come right into Oregon secondary and play right away. That's something new, something the NIL has afforded us, fortunately. But we're definitely excited. We're absolutely preying on the misfortunes of the Huskies. Very glad to have your CB1. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, Kalen DeBoer, heading out the window. Enjoy your time in Alabama. Thanks for our boy Jabbar. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, I know this is something that Duck fans have been waiting on for a while. I was watching the Oregon basketball game where the football team is being honored today at halftime. And the crowd absolutely went wild when it was announced. You know, Dan Lanning, he sent out his Ducks tweet right away with the whole box down emoji and everything. And the Oregon fans were absolutely losing it. The Washington fans were, you know, crying per usual. We absolutely love to see it. Yeah, so I mean, I really couldn't be more excited about what Jabbar brings to the table. I think the secondary is absolutely going to be a point of emphasis next year, a definite strength of the Ducks defense. And heading into the Big Ten for the first time, I think, you know, that's something Dan Lanning absolutely wanted to establish in his defense, something he's done a wonderful job addressing, not only in the recruiting, but also in the transfer portal. So, yeah, we're very excited for Jabbar, and we think, you know, he projects to play very well in this Ducks defense.
And this catapults Oregon into a top nine overall for the transfer portal, not to mention the hell of a recruiting class they already had as well. So, to the additions, like you said, and Kobe Savage as well in the secondary, Brandon Johnson and Cam Alexander, alongside what you did on offensively too with Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. We're going to talk about this on a separate show that we're going to shoot tomorrow that'll air on Monday, breaking down this great recruiting class that Oregon has put together on top of the transfer portal class that you guys are doing on which was a hell of a football team last year. And now you're headed into the Big Ten where Michigan doesn't seem to be on its head, but it's definitely, there's some question marks going on with the transition from Jim Harbaugh to Sharon Moore. And then Ohio State, although they fell short last year, ramped up heavily in the transfer portal and also had a pretty hell of a great recruiting class, finishing in the top 10, I believe. So Big Ten seems open for business. I wouldn't say wide open, but it's definitely open for business. It's going to be a different style of play for Oregon. How do you think Oregon bodes heading into the Big Ten with where it is currently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, a few years ago, if you asked me this question, I would say that Oregon is lacking. They don't have the physicality. They didn't address the trenches. Their secondary was atrocious. What I think has happened in the last year is there's definitely been an emphasis on bulking up the trenches. And as we're seeing here, the secondary. Heading into the Big Ten, I'm really excited. I think our secondary is going to hold their own. You know, obviously, my biggest concern being Ohio State with Jeremiah Smith coming in the number one overall wide receiver. And, you know, as we know, they always have a plethora of just absolute weapons on the outside. So that
Sure.
would have absolutely been a concern for me. Yeah. Um, but I think as we stand right now, at least on paper, you know, until we get going to spring ball and such, they match up really well. That's a matchup I'm absolutely stoked to see. In terms of the trenches, you know, the Big Ten, a little more physical brand than the Pac-12 typically. They've also bolstered up there, and you know, I know we'll get into that a little bit on Monday's show, but yeah, I think they stand really well, to be honest. I think there's going to be a transition, you know, and obviously I'm not going to come in here and say, oh, I guarantee Oregon's going to be, you know, at the top next year, Big Ten champions, da 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 da. That's really hard to say, right? Because we never know what it's like heading into a new conference, just different styles of play, different coaching schemes and whatnot. But as we stand currently, I am very optimistic about where we stand heading into the Big Ten, especially with how we've addressed the transfer portal.
Oregon, man, you're better than me. I would be telling a lot of lies heading into next season at the Big Ten, but that's how us Florida boys are. We don't hold any punches. So, look, Oregon Duck fans, if you guys enjoy this type of content, we're going to be pumping out a bunch of content, all things Oregon football and other Oregon related sports. If Derek wants to dive into that, so be sure to smash the like button, turn the bell on because you don't want to miss it in case anything that does break, like a big time commitment. I know there is some murmurs there could be another potential commitment happening this week. So keep your ears pinned back, keep your eyes open for that. And again, like and subscribe if you guys do enjoy this comment. Let us know down in the comment. What are some things that you want to hear from Derek, our Oregon Duck insider, and some things you would like to know. But until then, make sure you guys give us a subscribe. Follow us on Twitter as well. We'll be more active on there. Until next time, I'm Shelton.
And I'm Derek. I'll see you guys.
See ya.